I thought it was going to be the perfect Saturday morning filled with coffee and my husband's giddy excitement. Instead, it was the day he confessed to buying his mother a $300,000 house without my knowledge, triggering a chain of revelations that would shatter my entire life. The smell of freshly brewed coffee and toasted sourdough filled our small kitchen, the comforting scent of a perfect Saturday morning. I was leaning against the counter, scrolling through emails on my phone, a lazy smile on my face. Mark, my husband of 5 years, was sitting at our small bistro table, watching me with an unusually bright, almost giddy expression. He'd been like this all morning, humming to himself, tapping a cheerful rhythm on the tabletop. It was a little strange, but I chalked it up to the beautiful weather. "You're in a good mood," I said, taking a sip of my coffee. "I am," he beamed, his smile stretching from ear to ear. "I have some amazing news, Sarah. Life-changing news." My heart did a little flutter. Life-changing? Was he finally getting that promotion he'd been after? Were we going on a surprise vacation? I put my phone down, giving him my full attention. "Okay, I'm intrigued. What is it?" He took a deep breath, puffing out his chest like a proud peacock. "Honey," he began, his voice laced with a dramatic flourish. "We did it. We finally solved my mom's housing problem for good." I frowned, confused. His mother, Brenda, lived in a small, slightly run-down rental apartment about an hour away. It wasn't ideal, and we'd often talked about helping her find a better place, maybe co-signing on a nicer rental when her lease was up next year. "Solved it? What do you mean? Did you find her a new apartment to look at?" Mark's smile somehow grew even wider. He reached across the table and took my hand. His was warm and a little clammy. "Better. So much better. Honey, we bought my mom a house." The coffee mug in my hand felt suddenly heavy. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. He had to be joking. This was one of his elaborate, weird jokes. "What?" I asked, a nervous laugh bubbling in my throat. "That's not funny, Mark. For a second there, I'm not joking, Sarah." His eyes were shining with sincerity, and a cold stone dropped into the pit of my stomach. "It's a beautiful little bungalow just 2 towns over. 3 bedrooms, a little garden for her roses. She's going to love it. We closed yesterday." The words hung in the air like toxic spores, infecting the cozy atmosphere of our kitchen. We closed yesterday. My mind was a frantic blur of calculations and questions, none of them making any sense. A house? How? We had savings, sure, but it was for our dream house, the one we'd been meticulously planning for, the one I'd been working 60-hour weeks in my tech job to afford. It was nowhere near enough for a down payment on a second property. "How, Mark?" My voice was barely a whisper. "How could you possibly buy a house?" "On a mortgage, of course," he said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "It wasn't easy, but I pulled some strings, worked my magic." "A mortgage? Mark, your salary as a sales associate can't possibly qualify for a mortgage on its own, and I certainly didn't co-sign anything. I didn't even know about this." The stone in my stomach was turning into a block of ice. A chasm had just opened up on our kitchen floor, and I was terrified of how deep it went. He finally seemed to notice the look on my face, and his triumphant expression faltered, replaced by a look of placating reassurance. Okay, look, I know this is a surprise," he said, squeezing my hand. "I wanted to handle everything myself and then present it to you as this big, wonderful gift. Think of it, Sarah. My mom, safe and secure for the rest of her life. We're good people. We're doing a good thing. You went behind my back and took on hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt," I said, my voice trembling with a mixture of rage and disbelief. "How much, Mark? How much was the house?" He had the decency to look away for a second, staring at a spot on the wall. It was a steal, really, in this market. Unbelievable find. "How much?" He cleared his throat. $300,000. I snatched my hand away from his as if I'd been burned. $300,000. I felt dizzy, like the room was tilting. Our combined 5-year plan was to save up maybe $100,000 for our own down payment. He had just single-handedly shackled us to a 30-year debt for his mother. "Are you insane?" I finally exploded, my voice raw. "Completely and utterly insane? How are we supposed to pay for that? How are you supposed to pay for that? Your commission checks barely cover your car payment some months." This was the moment his entire plan, the reason for his giddiness, came spilling out. He looked at me, his expression shifting into one of pure, unadulterated confidence. It was the look of a man holding all the aces. "That's the brilliant part, honey," he said, his voice smooth as silk. "That's where you come in. We bought my mom a $300,000 house on mortgage, but with your salary, we'll pay it off fast. I figured it out. If we're aggressive, we can knock it out in like 10, maybe 12 years. It's an investment. And my mom gets her dream home. It's a win-win." I just stared at him, speechless. He hadn't just made a unilateral financial decision. He had volunteered my entire career, my future earnings, my life's work, as a tribute to his mother, without so much as a conversation. He saw my salary not as something I'd earned through sleepless nights and years of dedication, but as a convenient, limitless resource for him to allocate as he saw fit. "Show me the paperwork," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "I want to see everything. The mortgage agreement, the deed, the closing statement. Now." He seemed a little taken aback by my tone, but quickly recovered, eager to show off his handiwork. He retrieved a thick manila folder from his briefcase and spread the documents across the table with a flourish. My hands shook as I picked up the main loan agreement. My eyes scanned past the principal amount, the property address, my mind still struggling to accept this new reality. I saw the interest rate. It was astronomically high, the kind you get when you're a high-risk borrower with a low income. My blood ran cold. But that wasn't what made me stop breathing. It was the section detailing the source of the down payment, a $60,000 wire transfer. $60,000. We only had one account with that much money in it. The account I had set up years before we even met, the one I had diligently contributed to from every single paycheck I'd ever earned. My inheritance from my grandmother, my emergency fund, my future. He had found it, and he had drained it to zero. The manila folder slipped from my numb fingers, scattering a cascade of official-looking papers across our kitchen table. The loan agreement, the title deed, the closing disclosure, each one felt like a tombstone marking the death of our marriage. My gaze, however, was fixed on the bank statement he'd printed out, the one showing the transfer. The account name was clear: Sarah Jensen, Private Savings. And the final balance was even clearer: $417. All that was left after a $60,000 wire transfer. $60,000. My grandmother's legacy. The safety net I had built for myself long before I'd ever built a life with him. "You stole my inheritance?" I whispered. The words felt foreign in my mouth, like a line from a bad movie. This couldn't be my life. Not my quiet, predictable, well-planned life. Mark flinched as if I'd slapped him. "Stole? Sarah, don't be so dramatic. It's not stealing when it's for family. It's our money. We're married. I invested it in a tangible asset. It's real estate. It's for my mom's future, for our future." "My name is the only one on that account, Mark." My voice cracked, rising with a hysterical edge I didn't recognize. "I opened it when I was 21. It wasn't our money, it was my money. How did you even get into it? How?" He had the gall to look offended, puffing up his chest in a pathetic display of wounded pride. "I remembered the password from that time your laptop crashed and you asked me to help you log into your banking app. You said it was for emergencies. Well, this was an emergency. My mother was miserable in that shoebox apartment, Sarah. I had to do something. I thought you'd be proud of me for taking initiative." Proud of him. The audacity of it sucked the air from my lungs. He saw this not as a profound betrayal, a grand theft, but as a proactive gesture. He had listened to me talk about my private personal savings, filed away the password for his own future use, and then drained it without a second thought, all while convincing himself he was the hero of the story. The gaslighting was so profound, so complete, I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. "Did Brenda know?" I asked, my voice flat. "Does your mother know that you stole my life savings to buy her a house?" "Of course not," he scoffed. "I wouldn't burden her with the details. I just told her that we'd worked hard and were finally in a position to give her the gift she deserves." The look on her face, Sarah. It was worth every penny. Worth every penny of my money. Worth every ounce of trust I'd ever placed in him. I sank into a chair, my legs suddenly unable to support me. My mind was racing, trying to process the sheer scale of the deception. He hadn't just made a bad financial decision, he had planned this. He had waited for an opportunity, used my own trust against me, and then constructed an elaborate fantasy where he was the provider, the generous son, using a fortune he hadn't earned. And the worst part was the confident gleam in his eye. He genuinely believed he had done nothing wrong. He truly thought that my salary, my inheritance, my entire financial identity was just an extension of his own wallet. "We need to undo this," I said, my mind clinging to the only possible solution. "You need to call the bank, the realtor, whoever. You need to tell them there's been a mistake. We can't afford this. This is fraud." His smile vanished, replaced by a cold, hard glare. Don't you dare try to ruin this for my mother. It's done, Sarah. The papers are signed. The house is hers. You're just going to have to accept it. We'll tighten our belts for a few years. You can pick up a few extra projects at work. It'll be fine. You're making this into a much bigger deal than it is." A bigger deal? He had just detonated a financial bomb in the middle of our lives and was telling me I was overreacting to the fallout. A chilling clarity washed over me. This man was not my partner. He was a parasite. I stood up, my movements stiff and deliberate. I began gathering the papers from the table, my hands no longer shaking. The shock was being replaced by something else, something cold and sharp, fury. I needed to understand every single detail of the trap he had laid for me, for us, for my future. I sorted through the documents, my eyes scanning the fine print, the legal jargon, the endless strings attached to this $300,000 anchor he had chained to my leg. I saw the loan terms, the outrageous interest rate, the balloon payment schedule. It was a predator loan, designed for the desperate. And then I saw the signature page of the mortgage application. There was Mark's looping, confident signature on the line for borrower 1. And right below it, on the line for borrower 2, was my name. My full legal name, Sarah Elizabeth Jensen, signed in a flawless imitation of my own handwriting. I had never seen this document before in my life. I had never been to the bank, never spoken to a loan officer, never held the pen that made this mark. But there it was. My signature, binding me, legally and financially, to his crime. I held the paper up, the single sheet trembling in my hand. My voice came out as a dead, hollow whisper. "Mark, what is this?" He glanced at it, then quickly looked away, a flicker of something, fear, guilt, finally crossing his face. "It's just a formality. The bank needed both our incomes to approve the loan." I looked from the forged signature to his face, the face of the man I had promised to love and trust. The chasm between us was no longer just a crack in the kitchen floor. It was a canyon, vast and impossibly deep. "You didn't just steal from me," I said, the words falling like chips of ice into the silent room. "You didn't just lie to me. You signed my name." The air in the kitchen grew thick and heavy, charged with the toxic fallout of his confession. "You signed my name." I repeated the words, letting them hang between us. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation, and the weight of it seemed to physically press down on him. His cocksure demeanor finally shattered, crumbling away to reveal the panicked, cornered man beneath. "Sarah, I had to. he stammered, his hands fluttering nervously. "The loan officer said my income alone wasn't enough. He said with your salary we'd be a slam dunk. It was just a piece of paper, a means to an end. It doesn't change anything." "It changes everything," I screamed, the sound tearing from my throat, raw and painful. I slapped the forged document down on the table. "This isn't just a lie, Mark. This is a crime. This is identity theft. This is forgery. You used my name, my credit, my financial history to commit fraud. Do you have any idea what you've done?" He stared at me, his eyes wide and uncomprehending, as if I were speaking a foreign language. The legal ramifications, the sheer criminality of his actions, seemed to be concepts his mind simply couldn't grasp. He was still stuck in his own delusional narrative, where he was the loving son making a grand gesture. "Fraud? Don't be ridiculous," he scoffed, a pathetic attempt to regain his footing. "It's for my mother. It's a good thing. The bank got what they wanted, a secure loan. My mom got what she needed, a home. We'll pay it back. No one gets hurt." "I get hurt!" I gestured wildly around our small apartment at the life we had built, which now felt like a stage set for a tragedy. Our life gets hurt, our future. The future I was working for, the house we were supposed to buy together, the children we talked about having. Where did you think that was all going to happen, Mark? Did you think we could raise a family while funneling every spare cent I make into a mortgage for your mother's house? A mortgage you trapped me in with a forged signature? The mention of children seemed to finally land a blow. A flicker of something that looked like remorse crossed his face, but it was gone as quickly as it came, replaced by a stubborn defensiveness. "We can still have all that. It'll just take a little longer. You're a senior developer, Sarah. You'll get another raise soon. You always do. We'll be fine." The absolute, unshakable faith he had in my ability to earn my way out of the hole he had dug for us was the most insulting part of it all. He wasn't my partner, I was his beast of burden. I was the golden goose, and he had just decided to pawn my future eggs for a quick win. I felt a cold, terrifying calm settle over me. The screaming was over. The shock had passed. Now all that was left was the chilling reality of my situation. I was legally tethered to a man who saw me as a walking, talking ATM, a man who had committed a felony in my name without a single pang of conscience. I walked over to the manila folder and began methodically putting all the documents back inside. The purchase agreement, the loan documents, the fraudulent signature page, the bank statement showing the theft of my inheritance. I handled them like they were evidence at a crime scene, because that's what they were. "What are you doing?" Mark asked, watching me with a new kind of anxiety. The confidence was gone, replaced by the dawning horror that perhaps I wasn't going to just get over it. "I'm thinking," I said, my voice devoid of all emotion. I slid the folder into my oversized work tote alongside my laptop. "I need to go for a walk. I can't be here right now." "Sarah, wait," he pleaded, stepping in front of the door. "Let's not do this. Don't walk away mad. Let's talk about it. We can make a new budget. I'll show you my spreadsheets. You'll see, it's all manageable." I looked at him, truly looked at him, for the first time since this nightmare began. I didn't see the charming, funny man I had married. I saw a stranger, a con artist with my husband's face, a man who had looked me in the eye day after day, week after week, all while orchestrating this massive betrayal. He had planned it, executed it, and then presented it to me with a smile, expecting me to applaud. "There are no spreadsheets that can fix this, Mark," I said softly. "You didn't just spend our money. You forged my name. You made me a party to your crime. The trust is gone. I don't know what's left." I pushed past him and walked out the door, not looking back. The crisp autumn air hit my face, but I couldn't feel it. I walked aimlessly for what felt like hours, the folder in my bag bumping against my hip, a constant reminder of the disaster. My mind was a whirlwind of lawyers, police reports, and credit freezes, But under all the logistical panic, there was a deeper, more painful question. What about Brenda? His sweet, unassuming mother who baked us cookies and always asked about my work with genuine interest. Mark said she didn't know the details. Could that be true? Or was she a willing participant in this scheme, the innocent-looking queen in my husband's chess game against me? My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize. I opened it. It was a picture. A smiling, jubilant Brenda, holding up a set of shiny new house keys. She was standing on the porch of a cute little bungalow, the one from the real estate listing in the folder. Beneath the photo was a message. Sarah, my dear, Mark showed me the pictures of you at the closing yesterday. You look so happy. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart, for making my dream come true. You are the best daughter a woman could ask for. Pictures of me. At a closing I never attended, my blood turned to ice. He hadn't just forged my signature, he had fabricated my presence. My breath hitched in my throat. I read the text again and then a third time, the words blurring through a haze of disbelief. Pictures of me. At the closing, but I was at work yesterday buried in code for a product launch, a fact easily verifiable by my keycard logs, my emails, my chat history. The lie was so audacious, so complete, it was almost brilliant in its sociopathy. He hadn't just signed my name, he had created an entire phantom version of me, a smiling, complicit wife who was overjoyed to bankrupt herself for her mother-in-law. My fingers trembled as I typed a reply to Brenda. What pictures are you talking about? I wasn't at any closing yesterday. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The response was almost instantaneous. Oh, silly girl. Mark sent me a lovely photo of you and him signing the papers with the lawyer. You were wearing that pretty blue dress you wore to my birthday last year. Such a beautiful smile. He said you were just beaming. The blue dress. My mind flashed back to Brenda's 65th birthday party at a local Italian restaurant. Mark had insisted on taking photos, dozens of them. He'd posed me with Brenda, with him, with the cake. At the time, I thought it was sweet. Now I saw it for what it was, reconnaissance. He was gathering assets. The memory made my skin crawl. He had taken a picture from that happy occasion, and what? Photoshopped me into a lawyer's office? Was that what he showed his mother? Or was the lie even simpler? Had he just described the scene to her so vividly, so convincingly that she had painted the picture in her own mind? It didn't matter. The intent was the same, to create a false narrative that implicated me, that made me a willing and joyful participant in my own financial ruin. I suddenly felt a desperate need for a witness, for someone in my corner who wasn't part of this gaslit nightmare. I dialed my brother, Liam. He was a corporate lawyer, pragmatic and level-headed to a fault. The phone rang twice before he picked up. Sarah? Everything okay? You never call in the middle of a work day. Liam, I need your help, I said, my voice shaking. Something terrible has happened. I stumbled through the story, the words pouring out of me in a frantic, disjointed torrent. The house, the mortgage, my stolen inheritance, the forged signature. With every detail I recounted, the silence on the other end of the line grew deeper, heavier. When I finally finished with Brenda's text message about the phantom photos, he let out a long, slow whistle. Okay, Sarah, first things first. Where are you right now? His voice was calm, a steady anchor in my storm. I'm just walking. I left the apartment. I have the paperwork with me. Good. Do not go back there. Do not talk to Mark. Do not reply to his mother again. Go to a coffee shop or a library somewhere public. I'm going to make a few calls. I know a guy who specializes in financial fraud and a very, very good divorce attorney. We need to move fast on this. Divorce. The word hit me like a physical blow, even though I knew it was inevitable. Hearing it spoken aloud by my brother made it real. The life I had known for 5 years was over. It had ended yesterday in a lawyer's office I'd never entered. I found a quiet corner in a Starbucks and, following Liam's instructions, started taking pictures of every single document with my phone, uploading them to a secure cloud drive he set up for me. As I photographed the forged signature page, my rage solidified into a cold, hard resolve. Mark wasn't just a foolish husband who'd made a mistake. He was a criminal. He had planned this, meticulously. He'd stolen from me, lied to his family, and committed a felony, all with the serene confidence of a man who believed he was entitled to my life's work. An hour later, my phone rang. It was Liam. "Okay, I've spoken with both contacts. The fraud specialist, a guy named Peterson, says this is an open and shut case of aggravated identity theft and forgery. Given the amount, we're talking serious felony charges. He said the first step is to file a police report." "Police?" I whispered, the word tasting like ash. Involving the police meant this would become public. It meant there was no turning back. "Yes, Sarah, immediately. This isn't a marital spat. It's a crime. The second thing is you need to freeze your credit with all 3 bureaus right now. The divorce attorney, Jessica, she's a shark. She wants to meet with you first thing tomorrow morning. She said the forgery and theft give you immense leverage. We can argue for a complete annulment based on fraud, and you'll likely get everything, including your $60,000 back from his share of any marital assets." Marital assets. The thought was laughable. Our only real asset was our shared savings account, the one we were building for our house. It had about $40,000 in it. The rest of our lives was a collection of IKEA furniture and a 5-year-old car. His plan was never about shared assets. It was about shared debt, with my income as the sole collateral. Just as I was about to hang up with Liam, I got a notification, an email from our joint savings account. My heart hammered against my ribs. I clicked it open. It was a transfer confirmation, a transfer that had just been initiated minutes ago. Mark had just moved the entire balance, every last cent of the $40,000, into his personal checking account, the account I had no access to. He was liquidating everything. He was running. The email notification was a gut punch. $40,000. Gone. Just like that. He knew. He must have seen me leave with the folder, felt the finality in my voice, and made his move. He wasn't just a thief, he was a scorched earth strategist, determined to leave me with absolutely nothing. For a moment, blind panic threatened to overwhelm me. He had my inheritance, he had our joint savings, and he had shackled me to a 30-year mortgage. From his perspective, he had won. But as I stared at the transfer confirmation, panic gave way to a white-hot, diamond-hard rage. He thought he could outsmart me. He thought my salary was my only asset. But he had forgotten about my most valuable one, my brain. I immediately forwarded the transfer confirmation to Liam, my fingers flying across the screen. "He just drained our joint account, all of it." Liam's reply was instant. "The idiot! That's dissipation of marital assets. He just handed Jessica the gun to shoot him with. Don't worry, we'll get it back. File the police report, Sarah. Do it now." Walking into the police station was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. Explaining to a stoic, uniformed officer that my husband had stolen my identity to buy his mother a house felt surreal, shameful. But the officer didn't blink. He listened patiently, took my statement, and made copies of every document in the manila folder. When he saw the forged signature, he nodded grimly. "This is a felony, ma'am. A detective will be in touch." I walked out with a case number in my hand, a flimsy piece of paper that felt like the first brick in a new foundation. The next morning, I met Jessica, the divorce attorney. She was exactly as Liam described, sharp, impeccably dressed, and radiating an aura of controlled ferocity. She reviewed the documents, her expression growing colder with each page. "This is egregious," she said, looking up at me. "In 20 years, I've rarely seen a case of financial fraud this blatant between spouses. He didn't just cross a line, he blew it up with C4. We're not going to ask for a divorce, Sarah. We're going to file for an annulment on the grounds of fraud. We'll argue the entire marriage was predicated on his intent to defraud you. We will invalidate the union from its inception." The plan was swift and brutal. Jessica immediately filed an emergency motion to freeze Mark's personal accounts, citing the fraudulent transfer. Because I had the police report, the judge granted it instantly. Mark was cut off from the money he'd just stolen. Next, Jessica and Peterson, the fraud specialist, contacted the mortgage lender's fraud department. They presented them with the police report and a sworn affidavit from me, complete with my work logs proving I was miles away at the time of the closing. The bank, facing a massive lawsuit and the PR nightmare of having approved a fraudulent loan, moved with terrifying speed. They launched an internal investigation. Within 48 hours, the loan was flagged as fraudulent. The closing was declared void. The wire transfer of my $60,000 was reversed. The money was back in my private account before Mark even knew his own accounts were frozen. The fallout was spectacular. The bank fired the loan officer who had so conveniently overlooked the red flags. They also initiated legal proceedings against Mark for mortgage fraud. Suddenly, my soon-to-be ex-husband wasn't just facing an angry wife. He was facing a federal crime. He tried to call me dozens of times. Then came the texts, a deluge of panicked apologies, pathetic excuses, and furious accusations. He accused me of trying to ruin his life, of trying to make his mother homeless. I never responded. I blocked his number, blocked his email, blocked everything. The final confrontation came through his mother. Brenda called me, sobbing. "Sarah, how could you do this? The bank is taking my house. Mark is in so much trouble. He did this for me, out of love. You're tearing this family apart." The last vestiges of sympathy I had for her evaporated. "Brenda," I said, my voice as cold and clear as a winter morning, "Mark didn't buy you a house. He stole my life savings and committed a felony in my name to do it. He didn't tell you that, did he? He didn't tell you the down payment came from my grandmother's inheritance, which he took without my knowledge. He didn't tell you he forged my signature on a legal document. He didn't do this out of love. He did it out of entitlement. He wanted the glory of being a good son, and he decided I would be the one to pay for it. The consequences he is facing now, he earned every single one of them." There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line, then a quiet click. I never heard from her again. The annulment was granted without a fight. Faced with irrefutable evidence of fraud, Mark's lawyer advised him to sign everything. The marriage was legally declared to have never existed. The joint account, once unfrozen, was awarded entirely to me as punitive damages. He was left with nothing but his meager sales salary and a mountain of legal bills. Last I heard, he was facing criminal charges from the bank and had to move back into the very same rundown rental apartment he'd been so desperate for his mother to leave. It took me a while to feel safe again, to trust my own judgment. But standing in my new apartment, a place I bought myself, with my own name on the deed and my own money in the bank, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. I had lost a husband, but I had reclaimed my life. And I learned the most valuable lesson of all. A salary isn't just a number on a paycheck. It's a measure of your work, your time, your dedication. It's your independence. And it's not for sale, especially not for someone else's dream.